Much like when I talked about Bahrain in a video last year, relatively few people are able to locate Oman on a map. But unlike Bahrain, the Sultanate of Oman is not a small island country. It is, in fact, almost 4 times larger than its neighbor to the northeast, the UAE. Historically, as well, a hugely important country in the Middle East, the Omani capital of Muscat was actually the principal trading port of the entire Persian Gulf region. Today in the Canadian Expat, we go to Muscat in the Sultanate of Oman. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Christina Christensen. Christina can be described as a bit of a serial expat. Prior to moving to Oman in January last year, she had lived in the South American Amazon jungle for almost 4 years. Born in Edmonton, but spending most of her time after the age of 12 in Ontario makes her an Albert Ontarian. Anyway, Christina, welcome to the Canadian Expat.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Just to give us some background, can you tell us a little bit about why the move from the Amazon jungle to Oman?
Well, I met my husband in Peru, and very quickly we decided that we wanted to relocate to Muscat, based on actually he received a job offer from a very well-known medical clinic. He's a doctor of osteopathy, and so yeah, we went on like this cross-world adventure and landed here. Um, yeah, in January, and it was so vastly different than what I had come from that I was a little bit nervous, actually.
I bet. Oman is a bit of a mystery to many people who have never really been to the region. This is a question that I love to ask just because so many people are very curious about it. What do you see out your window?
Okay, just to give you a little bit of perspective, the city of Muscat is actually kind of built on the side of a mountain overlooking the ocean, as well as, it's basically built out on the beach going into the ocean. So where I'm situated is more close to the mountainside. So when I look out my windows, actually, I see huge mountains. And because I'm on the ground floor, also I have, it's basically an enclosed yard. In most countries in this area of the world, they will have closed-in yards like this. Is very tall, maybe like almost 3 meters tall, cement wall all the way around.
Do you have any advice for anybody who might be considering the move as an expat to Oman in terms of how to adjust maybe the culture, the heat, those sort of things?
Yeah, I think there's really three main things. Is definitely the heat. Be prepared for the heat. Uh, Even in South America, living like on the equator, it's supposed to be like the warmest. It's sunny every day. It was also rainforest, so you can imagine the different kind of heat. Here, it's a heat like you've never felt before. So you really need to be prepared for it. Like I thought in South America, I never wore sunscreen. Yes, it was sunny, but there's trees everywhere. So it was like I never had a sunburn. But here, like my first couple of days, I was sunburnt, like it just, it's totally different. It's dry in the middle of summer. It gets to over 50 degrees Celsius, which is like, you can't even imagine how hot that is without actually ever experiencing it. Like there's no frame of reference for it. The only thing that I could say is that imagine in some parts of Canada, it gets to minus 50 where like you don't go outside. It's the same here with plus 50. You don't go outside, except that it's hot. Like literally the air coming out of my mouth is cooler than the ambient air. And it felt like air conditioning leaving my mouth. So like really light layers. A lot of the time you'll feel like you want to wear scarves. It's very easy to just like wrap it to protect yourself from the sun, or baseball caps. Typically, you don't show your shoulders in public. Uh, that being said, of course, they don't say anything if you want to wear a tank top. There's a lot of people walking around with sleeveless shirts. But if you go into a restaurant or a shopping center or something like this, you want to have your shoulders, and sometimes, even depending on where it is, your elbows covered. And for women, the knees. Um, Men, they don't care about. They can wear shorts way above the knee. They can wear t-shirts any time of the year. It doesn't matter. But for women specifically, that's the one thing of advice I would say is to like be careful with the heat, because you do have to wear a little bit more than what you want to wear. So be selective in the articles of clothing that you bring. The second thing, yes, would definitely be the culture. Like, it's not a shock because everybody here actually speaks English. Most people, I shouldn't say everybody, most people speak English here. They're trained from when they're young, just like in Canada, we're trained to speak French, although I don't speak French. My husband is French. I don't speak French, and I'm from Canada. Anyways, yeah, they're trained to speak English from very young age, so you can feel very comfortable very quickly. But there is obviously, if you're not used to seeing people walking around in like traditional uh, pieces of clothing, you know, some of them are very elaborate. They have like these really beautiful, like jewel encrusted headpieces, even like it's really like something from like another planet. You think it's so beautiful. Some of them are like fully covered, so that can be a little bit strange to see at first, but you know, it's how they live. It's their regular way of life. And even sometimes I laugh to myself that sometimes I wish that I could wear pajamas all day, because sometimes that's what I feel that they're like lucky enough to do, because the men walk around in like these long white robes and the women just wear like this long black robe, so it's kind of like they're just wearing like pajamas like all day, like super comfortable. Like, a little bit jealous of that sometimes. um, and then the third thing is like, my third piece of advice is to, if you're coming here to work as an expat, don't just like rely on your husband's network, or uh, something like this, or like your other partner who has come here for work. Look for something, if you can, before you even come, because it will take a while and you really have to do your research to like what you can do. Like I said, I was a chef many years. I'm 36 and I spent most of my life being a chef, and I couldn't work in a kitchen here. So like, you just have to expect the unexpected, really. um, yeah, you just do a little bit of research into what you can and can't do here as a man or a woman. I think it goes both ways in some aspects. You know, they have a lot of respect for women here. Like, there's the least amount of crime. They will stop on a dime to help a woman. You know, like, they have a really rich culture rooted in like family. So like, their mother is very important to them, their daughters are very important to them. There's families that have like 20 kids and all the grandparents and uncles and stuff living in one house, you know. So yeah, it's pretty incredible.
The last thing I'd love to do, we have 6 items that we'd love you to rate Oman on. It's very subjective, but I'd love you to go through these 6 items and let me know what you think. It's between a rating between 1 and 10. So if you can give me a rating and maybe a reason why, a brief reason why you think it should receive that. What? How would you rate the cost of living in Oman?
Well, some things are certainly cheaper than other places in the world, but in general, I would say the cost of living is very similar to North America. So the cost of living is not so bad, but it's also not so good. You make more money, but there are ways that you can definitely spend more money here. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I mean, I came from a really low cost of living place. So for me, this place is like a lot, maybe like 7,
Seven?
8.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Great. Healthcare, and you're part of the system, so perfect.
I believe that there are a lot more things here to discover than even I have yet to discover. So I definitely would rate the healthcare system here high. They have public healthcare actually for all of their citizens, which is really good. And they have very affordable health care prices as well, depending on what you need done. So on a scale of 1 to 10, their healthcare is like, yeah, I would say probably like an 8, 7 or an 8.
Fairly high. So curious. So as an expat in Oman, do you qualify for that universal healthcare as well?
No, it's strictly for Omani citizens.
Okay.
My company, however, does allot me a certain amount per year to spend either on insurance or to go seek medical assistance in whichever path I choose. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So,
Now, you've already touched on this, but how would you rate the friendliness in Oman?
oh, for sure, it's a 10. Like everybody here is so friendly. I love it.
Perfect. The community of expats.
Um, I would say the community of expats, it's very diverse. You have people from literally like every country in the world. You can find people from everywhere. And it's just, yeah, it's easy to integrate yourself. I was lucky enough to meet a lot of people from the French expat community. And they're like a really tight knit little family, I have to say. There's also something called the WGO, the Women's Guild of Oman, and they have a huge support group for all families, even Omanis. It's not necessarily for expats, but it started for expats to feel like they were part of a community, specifically women. This was, I don't know, 20 years ago, I think they started. So I think overall there's really huge support network for expats. I would have to rate it very high. Yeah,
Okay, great. Maybe
probably.
a 9, 8 or 9,
Yeah,
10.
yeah, I would say 8 or 9.
Perfect. Access back to Canada. How would you rate that?
Price wise, like if you're going to book a flight back to Canada, it can be a little expensive, but it depends. I found pretty good flights, but then you have big layovers, things like this. My best flight that I took was actually direct from Muscat to London, Heathrow to Toronto. It was the quickest, the cheapest, and like the most reliable, good airlines. So for accessibility, like, I mean, 2 flights, they were a little bit long, but it's very easy, very comfortable. Like Oman Air is beautiful. And then Air Canada obviously is a decent airline as well. I would rate it high, yeah, like 9 or 10.
9, 10. Perfect. Great. And the last one, a service that you might receive from a Canadian consulate or embassy.
Well, to be honest, that's one of the things that I have felt was a little bit lacking here. You know, the American embassy, even I went to a few events hosted by the American embassy, and they have like very good network, lots of people, lots of activities going on. But when I went, when I first arrived here, I went to what I thought was the embassy, which turned out just to be a small office of a consulate. And there wasn't even Canadians working there. The consulate guy, he was Canadian, but the other office workers, not Canadian at all. Like I could barely even understand their English, which was a little upsetting because for me to try to communicate like what I needed or wanted, at the time I wanted to register and I wanted to see if they had, you know, events going on or anything of that nature. They knew nothing of anything and told me just to go on the Government of Canada website. And I was like, thanks. uh, so I would have to rate it pretty low. Their services are pretty limited. They can stamp things if you need it and renew passports, I believe. That's pretty much it.
That's it. All
Yeah.
good to know. Christina, thank you so much for spending some time today with me.
I'm very glad that I did this, actually. I hope that the information I provided will help other Canadians move to this area of the world. It's not just Oman, but there's so much in this area of the world that is really undiscovered by the Western world. Because I think there's a lot of fear and misconceptions about not only the political war kind of things that are going on, but also of the culture and the religion. So
For sure. I'm sure you've helped to break down some of those barriers. Thank you so much.
thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. And for all those that are watching, thank you very much. If you've enjoyed this, please hit that like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Until next time.